Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Hi, I'm Natasha Milani, CEO of South Australian Leaders. I'm passionate about supporting the growth of businesses through the power of collaboration, helping companies to connect, scale and grow. This podcast is all about collaboration for anyone who runs a business. It can be lonely at the top. I believe no one executes alone. We all do better when we do it together. These are real companies talking about real challenges and how they strive to overcome them. Let's all learn and share together. Today I'm talking to a special guest that set up a very special organisation. I particularly want to welcome Nick Lee, who is the co-founder of the Jodi Lee Foundation, focused on bowel cancer awareness. He's also the director of Healthy Minds. Welcome, Nick.
Thanks, Natasha. Cheers.
Nick, what you've built in the Jodi Lee Foundation is incredibly special, based here in South Australia. Let's just start with the history of the organisation and just share your story and introduce yourself.
So, Nick Lee, as you said, co-founder of the Jodi Lee Foundation and director at Healthy Minds. And really, I had a corporate background. So I was a director at Unilever. I didn't have any background in cancer or psychology. And my entry into preventative health came out of tragedy. So I was living in Vietnam, 2 young kids. Jodi, my wife, was a special needs teacher, and completely out of the blue, she was diagnosed with stage 4 bowel cancer. And it happened really quickly. I was away in the north of Vietnam. We were based in Ho Chi Minh City. She rang me on a Thursday night saying, I've got abdominal pain, don't really know what it is. I wasn't concerned. Bowel cancer wasn't on my radar, and she was fit, healthy, didn't have any family history. But I suggested she went off to see the GP the next day, which she did. The GP recognised that there was a block in her bowel, ordered scans. Those scans came back at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and 11 o'clock that night, kids are fast asleep. I'm away with my team in Hanoi, and an ambulance comes to pick Jodi up, takes her to the airport, and she's airlifted at low level to Bangkok for emergency surgery, because what the scan showed was a tumour had almost entirely blocked her bowel, and they were worried if they flew her at normal altitude that she might burst her bowel. So I made my way there as quickly as I could. Successful operation to remove the tumour, but 3 days after, a specialist came to see us and said the cancer had spread. It was stage 4, and he told us that she only had 2 years to live. So we raced back here to South Australia, tried everything, lots of different treatments, very evasive, disruptive operations, chemotherapy, radiospheres. Nothing seemed to work, and unfortunately in January 2010 she passed away. So I left Unilever and felt this overwhelming compulsion that I wanted to do whatever I could to prevent others going through what we went through. So later that year, set up the Jodi Lee Foundation, and I'm really proud of the impact that the foundation has had, and we might go into that in a bit more detail. But 6 years after setting up the foundation, felt like I'd got it up to something that was sustainable. Met my now business partner, Dr. Tom Neame, in Healthy Minds. I really loved what he was doing in schools, talked to him about the opportunity in corporates, and we co-developed the corporate program, and now that's the large majority of our business. So I have this, out of tragedy, this wonderfully purposeful life, helping people minimise their risk of bowel cancer, Australia's second leading cancer killer, and also helping people build psychological skills to manage life's inevitable challenges.
Nick, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for the vulnerability that you've shared with not just me today, but with South Australia and beyond from that tragedy. And the legacy that's been left, I think, talked about wonderfully purposeful. I can absolutely feel, hear, sense that in the way that you speak about Jodi and the Jodi Lee Foundation. And I didn't actually know you were overseas at the time. That was something new I just learnt then. So that was even more complexity, I guess, in that context.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jodi couldn't have an operation or didn't want to have an operation in Vietnam. And I was lucky at the time, working for a big multinational like Unilever. They got her on a flight immediately. They'd screen the surgeons in Thailand to pick the one that they wanted to operate on her. They flew the kids over. They were quite incredible. It's sort of a long story, but, it's a story of an organisation that at their soul really cares about their people. So, I felt very fortunate to be with Unilever at the time.
Well, that is a great insight and accolade to them. What I have sensed as I've seen the Jodi Lee Foundation grow and part of SA Leaders is it's a not-for-profit organisation, but there is a very strong foundation to the organisation that you've established. So can you just share with us a little bit about the formation of that organisation, leveraging your commercial experience, and what were the key foundational pieces you felt were important in establishing the foundation so that it was sustainable, that had that long-term vision?
Yeah, well, clearly at the core of it was this real passion behind wanting to help others avoid what we went through. So that was really burning, and I think that needs to be burning to have a successful, sustainable organisation. You need to clearly be passionate about what you're doing. And at the time, a great friend of mine and Jodi's, Tiff Young, came on board very early on as a co-founder, and we complemented each other very well. She had a background in marketing and accounting, as well as a really good legal sense. So helping establish the foundation, that was really Tiff, and I was out there trying to get the message out there, fundraise and get support for the foundation. So I think the other thing that has been a key ingredient to our success is there is a powerful story at the heart of the foundation, but we've told that in a powerful way. And so not only have we appealed to people's head, but we've appealed to their heart as well. And I think that's been a big component of the success of the foundation. And one of the things that really struck me before I set up the foundation, I did quite a bit of fundraising for another cancer organisation. And it was quite a bit of money. I think I raised about $150,000 before setting up the foundation. And I just felt like I was handing this money over and they couldn't guarantee me it was going into bowel cancer, which was what I was passionate about. But I also felt it was a very one-way transaction. And one of the things that I started as a mindset and very much communicate that to the team, and is one of our core values, is we want to be the charity that gives back. And that really helps us in the relationships that we try and establish. And those relationships are really important to us, not only funding our initiatives, but also getting awareness out there. So I feel like it is a true partnership, and I feel like we try hard to understand the needs of those partners and see what we can do as a charitable organisation and foundation to support their objectives and support their pain points and help them as much as they're helping us. So that seems to work, and we're talking about collaboration today. I think it's at the core of our partnerships and relationships we have.
Absolutely, we are talking about collaboration, and that is in particular why I want to have a chat to you today. You've got very clear purpose, you've got very clear outcomes, is what you're sort of sharing there. A two-way win when it comes to those partnerships and relationships. Can you just share some case studies and examples about how you've built those partnerships and how they've evolved and how you've managed to really focus on those two-way outcomes?
Yeah, well, I think it's always been something that has been part of my career, working for Unilever in a marketing, sales, category management capacity. Partnerships, both internal and external, were very important. So a lot of sort of training and development in those areas and lots of opportunities to kind of practice those principles. So I had a very strong grounding in that space. And I guess working for a big organisation like Unilever, you see some of the internal politics, and that really was probably the only part of the Unilever job that I really didn't like. And so that kind of also triggered something in me to ensure that that wasn't going to be something that I was going to do when I left Unilever. It was going to be with an organisation where politics wouldn't get in the way of making a difference. And unfortunately, that was a bit naive, because I came into this charity space thinking, oh, surely everybody's going to be aligned and everyone's going to be kind of heading in the same direction. And I got a real wake-up call, with another charity in this space, where I reached out to them to try and work with them, and on multiple occasions in ways that I thought were true partnerships, and got battered back, and in fact worse than that, it felt like we were getting legal letters from them and other things to try and stop some of the things that we were doing to create awareness, which was very much part of our vision and their vision as well. So that was a real wake-up call as well. And I guess on the other side of the coin, we've had remarkable partnerships with everybody from the federal government to the AFL to large organisations to personalities that have really made an important difference that would have never happened had we not had this sort of collaborative mindset. So for me, it's very much about mindset and going into these things knowing that in many cases, 1 + 1 can equal 3. And we've got so many examples of that through the work that we've done. And I think you've got to be pretty bold as well. We've, as an organisation that was 2 years old, we got $2.5 million from the federal government to run Australia's first national awareness campaign. We got Shane Warne behind a campaign to raise awareness for 50-year-olds when they first get the screening test from the government. We've got Merv Hughes and Gavin Wanganeen working on a Talking Shit campaign that we're running at the moment. So, and I talked about the AFL as well. So, yeah, I hope there's a few sort of lessons in that, but hopefully also that points to what, as a foundation, we find really important about the relationships for us and the impact that they can have.
1 + 1 = 3. I think that definition of synergy is very powerful, and I think it's a nice reminder for everyone to think about what that means for their business. You've talked about mindset, and that's about being a deliberate mindset around taking your message with partners to the public and people and their staff. So I guess there's a strategy behind that for you. And you also mentioned that you took out of Unilever some principles around partnerships and collaboration. Can you just share how you then take that to set a strategy?
Yeah, so the strategy, I think, is very clear. And it has expanded. So originally we set out to save lives, right? You're in a foundation that is all about helping people prevent a disease that's very prevalent, but it is preventable. So it's about trying to educate people. So it seemed to be a pretty clear vision, but we needed to make sure that everybody was really clear about that. And we reminded the team of that on a regular basis. I think reinforcement is really important. So you might be stuck around a table and you might have some conflict around this table. But if you say, guys, we're in this room trying to save lives, it's a great way to course correct and bring everybody back into alignment as to what we're trying to do. Another tactic that we use is, what is the most helpful thing that we can do now? So it takes away any sort of conflict that might be around the table, and people start to go, okay, well, how do we move this conversation or initiative forward? So I think trying to have a very clear vision that you articulate frequently and you have some sort of powerful stories behind it certainly has helped us in our strategy and keeping everybody aligned. And it's very easy to get attracted by, what is the next shiny object or who could be this, great partner, which might detract from, staying in your lane and being very focused on what is your vision and the direction that you're heading. So in summarising that, it's having a very clear vision, getting stakeholders very much aligned, reinforcing that vision over time so you do stay in your lane and don't get distracted, and making sure that you, as you cast the net and get supporters on board, you keep coming back to that and using those stories to help them understand the direction that you're going in. And I think that's been a really important part of the foundation brand. Is you could go out and ask different people in the street who know about the foundation, and they'll say similar things about the foundation. They seem to get where we're going and what we're doing, which I think is really important to any brand.
Let's just talk about your expertise in the context of Healthy Minds, when a lot of business owners, employers are grappling with workplace wellbeing. What are some of the insights that you can share that you're seeing, is more prevalent in the corporates that you're working with? And what are some of the good solutions that you're seeing?
So I think wellbeing and mental health in particular is clearly a growing concern, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is the impact if you get it wrong as an organisation. So there's some new legislation out around psychosocial hazards and the responsibility of leaders in organisations around that. But also, if someone is off work because of a mental health issue, the cost of rehabilitation and bringing them back into the business is far higher than it is, say, for a physical injury, if someone breaks their arm and has to have a bit of time off work and then bringing them back. So there's a cost part of that whole equation. There's also a productivity part of that whole equation. So when someone has high well-being, they're more focused, they're more creative, they're more productive, they have better relationships, they're more clear thinking. And so there's a real interest in organisations building a staff that is well and building a culture for well-being. And so I think more and more organisations are starting to be driven by not just this cost factor, but, okay, if we can get this right, the impact on the organisation can be quite significant on the top line. So there seems to be this shift. There is also a shift between remediating. Okay, let's get in-house psychologists and an EAP provider to what can we do around prevention? Mm-hmm. How do we build the well-being of our staff? And, if we were to go out in the street now and interview the first 20 people that we came across and said to them, how do you become physically fit? So if you're going to run a marathon, what would you need to do? You probably get a pretty comprehensive answer. But you go and ask people that same question, what do you need to do to be mentally at your best? And you get a far less robust answer. So with Healthy Minds, what we're trying to do with our clients is deeply understand initially what's going on for them, and we've got a tool called the Healthy Mind Wellbeing Index for doing that, but then really tailoring our programs to be able to enhance the wellbeing of their staff. So what are the key issues that their staff are facing, and how do we help partner with them to address those? So I think that's important. More organisations are going, actually there's a little bit of science to this. We really need to understand what's going on for our staff, and there are providers out there like Healthy Minds that can really help.
It all really comes down to you've from the Jodi Lee Foundation and Healthy Minds, you've mentioned the word preventative a few times. I mean, that's really what this is all about, isn't it? Being preventative and not reactive, and putting those foundational pieces in place.
Yeah, and look, that takes a while to shift that mentality and mindset. We often use the analogy of a house on fire. So if a house catches fire, the fire brigade are rung, they come in, they put the fire out. There's a moment of time where everybody's celebrating the fact that the fire's been extinguished. But what would be better is if the electrician was brought in initially to resolve the problem that caused the fire, but then there's not a moment in time where anybody's celebrating. You might not have known that would have eventuated into a fire. And so the whole preventative side, and this is probably the wrong word to use, but is far less sexy than the remedial side. And so trying to get governments, businesses, individuals to start thinking around prevention has been difficult. It is changing, but it's taking time. And that's something that we're very focused on both fronts, the Jodi Lee Foundation and Healthy Minds, to try and help organisations and individuals with that.
Seems like a no-brainer, really. So if I'm standing in the shoes of a SME business owner, got a lot going on in the business, people to manage, clients to make happy, and just day to day, what would be some of the key questions I should be asking myself, my people? What would be some of the first steps that you would recommend they take to start having that preventative mindset?
Yeah, well, I think it builds on itself. So momentum is pretty important here, like anything. And so taking some small steps initially, for us, we would do one of two things with organisations. One, we would say, look, understand the challenges that are facing your staff and build a plan around that. And, as I said, we've got a tool to help to do that. For those that really do believe that they understand the challenges that their staff are facing, those psychological skills is where we would start. So we would say run our program called 7 Secrets to a Healthy Mind, because that is this dose of psychological skills that we know are lacking in most people. And the advantage of doing that is that they learn really important things. They learn how to make helpful, realistic and balanced decisions. They learn how to manage stress. We destigmatise stress. It's not about being good or bad. It's about having the right amount at the right time. We give people a framework for building out their well-being, so really to deeply understand that. We talk to them about self-compassion, how do you treat yourself when something goes wrong, which is very protective for mental health. We talk about the benefits of gratitude. So there's lots of things in that small 2-hour session, which is very interactive, which can fundamentally help people deal with life's inevitable challenges and, of course, improve their well-being. So that's the sort of places that I would suggest organisations start. It doesn't have to be a big budget, but just start to do something, because it will all help.
It's just having it on that preventative mindset on your radar and just taking one small step. So for those listening, just think about what it is that you might do in your business to help, in the first instance, understand where your staff may be facing those challenges.
And that's got to start with the leaders in the business as well. So if you feel like around the board table or around the executive table that there's a few leaders in that room that are not on board with that, then that's probably a good place to start as well. It's so important. Google did a quite a large research study some time ago where they tracked 130 of their teams across their business, and what they were trying to identify was what differentiates our high-performing teams to our non-high-performing teams. And the thing that came out on top was this concept of psychological safety. And it's used quite a bit, but it's creating a culture where people are very comfortable with speaking up without the fear of the impact of what they say coming back to bite them. So it's creating this culture of sort of creativity, being able to, see challenges early and address them, express ideas that people have got. It just makes a huge difference to the growth of any organisation.
Thank you. I just urge anyone listening to just think about what proactive steps they're going to take. Just coming back to the Jodi Lee Foundation, establishing any business, but particularly a not-for-profit business, it's a competitive environment. You've got some complexity in terms of funding and getting your brand out into the marketplace. You've talked about purpose and vision. Is there anything you'd like to share for those that are in the not-for-profit space that you could? I always like to think that we can all collaborate and work together. Is there anything you can share that was particularly important around the growth of that not-for-profit environment?
Yeah, I think I've sort of touched on a few of them already. So for us, there was a tragic moment when a beautiful young lady at 41 years old died of this disease that could have been prevented. So you get a big groundswell of support, and a lot of our funding for our initiatives initially came from our friends and family. But to be sustainable, you've obviously got to go beyond that. And so the relationships are really critical. And for us, we built those relationships across a few key ingredients. So we used that powerful story to really engage at an emotional level. And I think that was a great way to build partnerships, because people typically have this sense of empathy and they understand and they put themselves in the shoes of Jodi or the shoes of the kids or my shoes, and empathise with the situation. They also see, if it articulated in the right way, they can support a cause that is actually making a big difference. So for charities out there, you've got to be able to explain the impact that you're having, because people will get behind you and support you if they feel like they can make a difference. And then you've got to show them the difference that you're making consistently. So there's multiple ways that you can do that. I mean, we use social media as a very cheap way of getting that message out there as to the impact that we're having. But that's really important to supporters, and certainly the sustainability of supporters. They'll continue to give if they continue to feel like they're having an impact. At the end of the day, we're also all human too. So people want to do business and want to have partnerships with people they like. Okay, so building rapport, building relationships, understanding the importance of collaboration are vital ingredients. But you also got to be honest and have a high level of integrity, and that passion is contagious as well. So you talked about that initially, kind of feeling that sort of passion. And, the foundation's 13 years old, and I feel just as passionate about the foundation and the impact that we can have, in fact, more so than the day we open the doors. So people get that sense, and that is contagious for your partners and other supporters as well. So hopefully that's a few sort of key ingredients to our success as a foundation. But it is tough, you're right. And you've got to have a bit of a point of difference. But for us, being true to what we're trying to do, being very focused on your vision and your strategy and bringing people along for the journey is been the key ingredient for our success.
I went to your recent fundraising black tie event. It was a great success, and a beautiful young girl shared her story about how she engaged with the Jodi Lee Foundation. What struck me from that is the diversity of young and old. It's not. The government send out a test for those that are over 50, I think it is. But it's not just about older people getting bowel cancer, is it?
No, absolutely not. And we feel like we've got a really important role to play there, because, as you say, the government only first start educating when people are first eligible when they turn 50 to receive their free testing kit in the mail. And for us, that was too late. Jodi was 39 when she was diagnosed. It's now the leading cancer killer in 25 to 34-year-olds. Kelly, who you were talking about, who spoke at our ball, she was 25 when she was diagnosed with stage 3 bowel cancer. So for many people, 50 is too late. So we want to get the message out there, and we feel like that's a strong reason for the foundation, is to educate younger people as to the simple ways that they can protect themselves.
And just go to the chemist and get a test kit.
Yeah, there's loads that you can do, and it's not that difficult. I mean, the testing kit, we've been talking about that this morning. That's $45 from the pharmacy. Diet and lifestyle factors are really important as well. So all of the key things that around eating well, watching your weight, not smoking, limiting your alcohol content, all those sorts of things, ultra-processed foods, I think that's a big component of why we're seeing such a growth in younger people. We're not moving as much as we used to either, so that whole exercise component is really critical. The symptoms to watch out for and acting on them quickly. So we've got a campaign at the moment, and Kelly is heading that campaign, called Trust Your Gut, acting really quickly. You know your body's the best. If something doesn't feel right, get off and see someone. And of course, the family history is another part of the equation as well. So around 20% of cases have a link to family history. So they are the key things that you can do to prevent this very preventable disease. It's up to 99% preventable if caught early. So you need to know these things.
I just find that fascinating, and I feel the conversation we had today is sort of dual purpose from my lens. It's about educating those listening about collaboration and how you've established the foundation, your expertise in wellbeing in the workplace, but also some really simple messages there that everyone can take away to be proactive about their own health. And in fact, Nick, you do run a workplace program. Let's just give it a little plug now so that people know what their opportunity is to get the Jodi Lee Foundation to come into their business.
Yeah, and it's really simple. So really you just need to find half an hour of time. We normally say to people, put on a lunch or a morning tea to get the crowds in. It's not often easy to bring people to a bowel cancer session, but people do need to know about it. Second leading cancer killer, very preventable. And the key ways you can protect yourself are relevant not just for bowel cancer, there's many other diseases as well. So if you look at it from a general well-being perspective, it's really vital information that we're delivering in that half an hour. And we just get great feedback from it. And you know what? We have so many stories of lives saved through that program. So there's a group called CavPower, the Caterpillar business. They had us in. They issued, I think, around 170 tests to their staff. They had 24 positive results, and they know of 5 medical interventions. So 5 people did that test, got a positive result, and had polyps or something more sinister removed. So it really is saving lives. So if you want to save the life of yourself or your colleague, I suggest you get us in to chat.
That is really a very strong message that's come across in our conversation today. As chair of the Zara Foundation, I always admire the team that go into our office every day with that strong sense of purpose. I'm absolutely proud of the work that we do, and they come in with that strong sense of connection to the purpose and the story, as you have with the Jodi Lee Foundation. And I just reflect on the importance and the power of that.
Yeah, look, it's, and in fact, putting my Healthy Minds hat on, there's so much research coming out around the health benefits of having a strong sense of purpose and living a more purposeful life. I think the statistics suggest that people live 7 years longer. It helps people reduce their risk of cancer. It helps people deal with pain. There's so many reasons to have a strong sense of purpose. And you don't have to have the death of your wife and set up a foundation to prevent bowel cancer to feel a sense of purpose. It's just about how you can impact people in a positive way on a daily basis. That's a very purposeful life. And, you've got your own sense of purpose. Mine's different, albeit that they're both sort of foundations, but it really does help drive you forward and keep you focused and motivated. I love it.
And that's what I love about SA Leaders. We are absolutely putting a support structure around these great business leaders in South Australia, and the collaboration is what I'm passionate about, and the business community that we've established. So I really appreciate the fact that you've been a part of that community. You've absorbed all the support that's been offered, but you've also given back as well. So thank you very much, Nick. That's been a pleasure to have you and Rachel as part of the SA Leaders Network.
Yeah, well, we've loved it and we've got a lot out of it as well. And you see that sense of purpose coming through. So I think SA Leaders has done a great job at getting people there for the right reasons as part of that group, because you kind of wonder when you sit down and someone says to you, I'm really keen to help you with that. You kind of go, well, what's in it for them? And actually, it's just this genuine want to kind of help. And I think that runs thick through the veins of SA Leaders. So, we've felt that. We've had a huge amount of support from others. We've got a lot from different perspectives around the room. We've had a lot of collaboration coming from SA Leaders. So, for us, it's been brilliant.
I really appreciate your insights and feedback there. Thank you, Nick, for those listening that to just define their purpose, but to make sure it's shared in the organisation as well, isn't it? It's a joint purpose, making sure your team, your people are on the bus.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think sometimes people overlook that because as a founder, you kind of feel that strong sense of purpose. But as the organisation gets bigger and you get more people into the organisation, often that is overlooked. And that's why I say from a strategic perspective and a sense of purpose, hopefully the two are linked, you keep reiterating that and finding ways to reinforce that. I mean, for us, we're quite lucky. Every time we have an early detection story, we either share that across the organisation or we bring that person in. So rather than, hearing about it and telling the story to the team, why not bring the individual into the organisation and they can talk from their own heart about what the impact that the organisation has had on them. So, we try and infuse that as much as we possibly can, and it makes a big difference.
Absolutely. And last podcast we heard from Ben about how he brought his team in to actually grow and, make improvements and build, influence the strategy and future direction of the business. So it's all kind of really aligning that same message. So I just want to remind people of that because it sounds simple, but every now and then I think we need to be reminded.
Yeah, absolutely. And take opportunities to step back out and find ways to immerse everybody in your organisation, regardless of their role, in that sense of what the organisation is delivering. We've found that really, really beneficial to the culture and the motivation of staff.
Nick, thank you very much for your time today. Congratulations on the success of the Jodi Lee Foundation and the contribution that it makes to all of our lives in South Australia and beyond. We'll see you at SA Leaders soon, and thank you for joining us. Thanks for your time.
Natasha. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
I really hope you enjoyed this chat and it inspires you to harness your own power of collaboration. You can contact me, Natasha Milani, via LinkedIn or saleaders.com.au. All my details are in the show notes. And thank you for listening.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.